You're watching Leafs Morning Take with host Nick Alberga and former NHLer Jay Rosehill. The show starts now.
Okay, here we go. Monday, March 9th. Nick Alberga, Jay Rosehill. Monday edition of Leafs Morning Take presented by Bet365. Embrace the tank. How are you, Rosie? How was your weekend, buddy?
Mondays. Dude, it's pretty good. We're all done hockey. I'm done hockey in my household for a couple of weeks until this spring bullshit starts up. But, man, I'll tell you, we had this ragtag group of kids from District 5 or whatever the Mighty Ducks original team was. And we had our struggles and turmoil, and they not a lot of experience. We didn't have the horses, like the big studs, to just carry the thing. And it was a difficult year, dude. We didn't win a lot at all. But we have this tournament at the end of the year that is the playoffs, like one tournament. And right before it, they start peaking, and we just like demanded that they just play the right way, like fucking hard. Every stride, every last stick check, you don't stop till you're there. Time and space, commitment, short shifts, hard, off. And they just said, okay, we're all just doing it. And they just did it. And we ran through this tournament and got to the finals, which we have no business being in. And 1-goal game until the third period, and they lost it. So they got second. But it was so awesome to see. It's like the opposite of the Maple Leafs, the complete and polar opposite. No one expects you to do a damn thing, and you come together, and with pure heart and balls, you just do something special. And I couldn't help but laugh this weekend because it was the best time I've ever had coaching by a million. And then I come on here this morning and say, that's a little bit of something that the Maple Leafs are missing. And you watch whatever they're doing. I don't know if they're tanking or what. It's just so hard to watch. But nonetheless, polar opposite from Maple Leaf land. So I got a little bit of a break from the BS that we do day in and day out with this team.
What a story of perseverance. And I'm not being sarcastic with that, because I think over the weekend, it was a lot of time to reflect, especially after the trade deadline. And I took for granted how much winning this team did in the regular season in the last decade, where it's like show after show. I was excited. Not to say I wasn't excited to do this show and I won't be excited for tomorrow and so on and so forth. But the mentality, man, it is draining. It's so different from like when you're gearing up this time of year. Like this is the first time in a decade we're not gearing up for the Stanley Cup playoffs. And you can only wonder what's going on inside that room. You've lived it. What's the mentality, Rosie? It's post-deadline. The team's struggling. They've dropped 7 in a row. It must feel like the world's caving on these guys right now.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm trying to remember. Like my second year there that was the third year they hired Carlisle. The year before, we made like a push to the very last couple of games, I think. So it was just go, go, go till you're officially out. I don't really remember what it's like to have 20 games left and you're playing for nothing. It's not fun. You're trying to say all the right things. You're trying to have the right attitude. And the added caveat this year is that's the only positive that could come out of this disaster is to get your first rounder back and tank. So it's so weird. I don't know. Like, obviously, they're not talking about that. They're not mentioning it. They're talking about being pros and playing with pride in the jersey and all this stuff that you got to say. But I don't know, man. They're playing like garbage. Is it intentional or not? I'm not really just to say, they're embracing the tank, because they were frigging horrible when they had their season still up for grabs. They could have gotten to the playoffs after the Olympics, and they looked just as dog shit as they did on Saturday. So I don't know, man, but it's ugly. It's not fun. I bet you time is crawling for those guys. Every practice, every game day, I bet you it's just draining, and they put themselves in this position. They have no one to complain to but themselves. But yeah, I do know the feeling of going into those buildings day in and day out, and it's just like walking on eggshells. Nobody's happy. You don't feel like you're able to laugh or have a good time or joke around with the boys or enjoy the situation because everyone's supposed to be mad, which they're kind of supposed to be. But God, it makes for a long time. So I don't think they're having any fun. But I can't help but notice that they look pretty comfortable in this position, man. They're just going through it.
It's tough. And is it not the most leafiest thing ever to see instant success for Scott Laughton scores in his Kings debut over the weekend? Nicolas Waugh. Imagine being Nick Waugh right now. He's in Colorado. They pick up Nazem Kadri. They got McKinnon. They got Makar. That team is well-oiled, maybe potentially getting set for another run at Lord Stanley. And Nick Waugh even scores over the weekend. Like, it's when it rains, it pours. We'll see what Scott Laughton does moving forward, specifically in LA. But Bob McMahon expected to make his debut on Tuesday against Nashville. It's just so leafy. These guys move on right away. They're smiling. They're happy. The weight of the world's off of them, and then they start to produce and play good hockey.
Oh, you should tune into that game just to watch Bobby Mack's speed burst. He's just going to rip a snapper that's going to roast them from way out, just blowing the doors off of everyone. Couple B-ways. Oh, very leafy. Of course they did, dude. Nick Waugh is going to turn into this like bottom six power forward staple with a huge playoff goal. It's just a joke, man. I'd be pretty happy to be him getting out of everything that we just talked about that they're going through for the last 20 games here, trying to wrap this season up, and then he gets to go to just this pinnacle big dog McKinnon's team where they're going to make a run. I would think maybe the Lightning are up there. I've considered them the favorite in my mind for the cup for the entire season. Nonetheless, there's some good teams there, but they are the top 3-4 teams 100%. So looks like he embraced it by tucking early. Of course he did, and we just get to watch as everybody who formerly had a Maple Leaf jersey on at any point in time tends to light the league up.
Man, that was my theme of the trade deadline too, is like so many teams are just happy to be there. And that's why I think we saw a lack of activity where it just didn't feel like anybody really wanted to go after it. There were players available, but a lot of teams are comfortable in where they were in the standings, like teams like Montreal, Pittsburgh. There's a couple teams that made some moves. Like for me, obviously Colorado's a clear winner. Minnesota earlier on this year getting Quinn Hughes, but there wasn't that one team where there is most years where you're like, wow, like even the Leafs looking back at last year's deadline, profoundly after the deadline, people are like, the Maple Leafs are all in. I don't think that case is made for any team this year. Wow, they're all in, right? Like it's I guess it depends on the marketplace, but from a Maple Leafs perspective, they obviously wanted to do more. I mean, the fallout continues, the dust continues to settle from Friday, but they wanted to do more. It just there was nobody available to make a trade with, unfortunately, it sounds like.
Yeah, of course, man. It's I don't know, like just living in a simulation or them being cursed or something is just more and more probable all the time. Of course, when first time in a decade we're ready to sell, everyone's in this weird pattern of, it's a really weird year this year. A lot of people just happy to be there. Oh, it's a total buyer's market. Just okay, man. Every other year, when we want to do something, like imagine last year, that's what the situation was. Oh, everyone's just happy to be in the playoffs, so no one's buying, so many players available. Oh, the Leafs could just go gobble up everything they wanted and there's no competition. No, they got to pay out the ass for everyone and their dog all day long until we just deplete the cupboards trying to make a run. Doesn't work, and now we're just hooped. But I don't know. What's the point of bitching about it? It's interesting to see what happens. I mean, realistically, I just keep it's hard to watch these games, obviously, and I'm sure it's hard to play them too. But I mean, to get that pick back, how huge would that be? And how realistic is that to happen? They got to fall pretty hard. But I mean, it looks like they're not going to win another game for it looks like they're not even close to winning a game. And they haven't won one since before the Olympics. It's fucking embarrassing. Game. Maybe they don't seem to mind being embarrassed. Maybe they'll just lose every goddamn game down to the end of the season and get this pick back. It would salvage what is going to go down as a devastating deadline of 2025, where we just depleted everything, first rounders and prospects to make a go, and it left us high and dry.
Take a wild guess how much Scott Laughton played in his Kings debut over the weekend against Montreal.
14?
1508.
Wow.
That's the one that gets me. Like, again, I think hindsight's 2020, and it's so easy to look back and the Carlo deal and the Laughton deal. just never really felt like Lots had a fit in Toronto. Like there was this expectation they needed the third line center. I think right away he was like the 4C. Like he never really got a chance to do much here, it felt.
Yeah, I agree. I'd love to know why. I mean, even if a media guy asked Berube, he'd just give some, that's just where he was slotted, and he just give some answer that means fucking zero. But when you look back and like the struggles they were going through and the dropped games and the lack of emotion, the lack of leadership, the lack of veteran presence that it felt like they had, where you need a guy to kind of set the example or just ignite something. They don't have a lot of that. And Scott Laughton is certainly one of them. And not one time did you move him up the lineup. Not even when he was having success. Like he was hot there for a while and everyone was talking about him. And I don't know, for a guy that's playing with his heart and blocking shots and killing penalties and winning draws like a maniac, and you can never get him over that hump of however many minutes his average was. You can't get him to play with, like, he could never play with a Nyzy. He could never get up into the top six, try to get someone going, try to invigorate some kind of, jam. And just not one time. Like, it's not like, oh, you didn't give him enough chance, or, oh, that wasn't, it was zero opportunity. Why? It's not like you have the hottest team in the world. You can't break up the lines, chemistry all through the top six. Don't want to disrupt that. Want to give the guy an opportunity, but he's slotted here so much better, and all the minutes equal out to being where you want. No, it's all bullshit. It was a fucking disaster, and you never gave him a shot. I still don't understand it. I would love to know the actual reason, but I know that would have to be like a back room having some beers with Chief type of thing to know what the actual reason is. But it's a head scratcher, and people have definitely called that out. And I don't see a logical answer to me considering what they've gone through this year.
I know technology is not Lots' thing, but when he does post, it's good content. Like last year, he had the Last Supper picture. This year, It was the Dream Come True post where that hit me in the feels. Like, how long was Scott Laughton connected to Toronto? He comes to Toronto, and it's so short-lived. If you recall, prior to the season this year, we had him on, and we asked him, have you guys talked about a contract? Would you love to be a Maple Leaf? Like, that guy wanted to be a Leaf maybe for life, like for the rest of his career. And it just shows you, again, it's a prime indication of the business where 6-7 months ago, we're talking about the Leafs on the upswing. They make the Marner move. Obviously, they move on. But still, that window seems to be open. Now it's like headed the other direction where it's like, I have no clue what the plan is, the strategy, what they're thinking, who's going to stay, who's going to go. It just shows you how quickly things can change, right?
Oh. Is there a team that changed quicker than the Leafs? Like, just
probably not.
Holy, just a fall from grace like crazy. And I kind of knew that, you knew it was coming. It ebbs and flows. It goes in waves. There's a graph that this is how things work with contracts and superstars and windows to win. And the Leafs have been in one and had success in the regular season with strong teams, good enough to be in the playoffs for 10 years. Yes. But you kind of felt like just with the lack of picks and the lack of prospects, you kind of knew it was coming at some point in time. I didn't think it was going to be this soon, but it's scary looking. I mean, Tree Living goes on all the shows, and I mean, he said there will be a plan, but we got to sit down and figure out what that is. And
there's no plan.
Well, there is no plan right now. It's not like there's no plan, but the plan is not in place. But my question is, what are the options of plans? What are the options here? You're going to retool, put some names on paper here in the summer in some way, shape, or form. Hope that some of them work out. And then go into training camp kind of unsure. There's going to be a lot of naysayers like, what the hell is this? I'm sure of it. Like, you're not going to, how are you going to make such a splash where you're going to get everyone enthused about the prospect of having a really good, strong season? I don't know who those guys are that are going to end up on the roster where everyone's like behind this team and there's a lot of positivity. I don't know how that's going to happen. And you're going to go through that year. And again, I don't have high hopes for next year. I mean, I could be wrong, man. Like, if they wake the fuck up and have some leadership and get someone going and play, I don't care what system you're playing, but adopt it and commit to it and have Austin and Willie looking over going, you guys, enough bullshit. We're doing it and we're doing it right every goddamn night. We're creating an identity and we're doing things with purpose. Follow us. We're doing it right and we're doing it fucking hard and we're getting this ship on course and we're going to go into the playoffs guns a-blazing. And you could get any group of guys to buzz enough. You get some goaltending, injuries aren't as bad, add a D-man, have a healthy Tanev, away you go. It's possible. But I've never seen any of the leadership group even fucking think that that's a possibility. They just go out there and try to score their goal, and they do or they don't. And regardless, it's just an individual thing, whatever happens for them. It just doesn't seem to be a team. It just doesn't seem to be a team. It just doesn't seem to be a team. So True. Whatever. The plan is to make the team better in the offseason somehow and go through it, and maybe everything's better. I can't help but feel like there's a rip the Band-Aid off, tear it the hell down, unload everyone, get as much as you can before their value's gone or before you lose them for nothing or whatever, and try to get some pieces that people can get excited about, that you can build around, that you can draft around, and you rebuild. I can't help but think that's on the cusp here.
That's the most accurate depiction you can make. You're not sure it's a team. That's my takeaway from the season too. It's a bunch of guys on the ice together, and that's why this team finds itself in that position.
Well, what was that at the beginning of the season? Like, okay, you come out to a janky start. Like, no one can correct that. You just drop point after point after point after point up until Christmas. And it's like, Jesus, you guys, you're in and out of a wild card spot. Like, are you going to correct this? Are you going to do anything different? No, just keep doing what we're doing. And after Christmas, they fire Savard, the most random power play coach firing, and they get the coaching bump for that. And when you watch those games, you're like, oh my God, look at them. They're confident, they're committed. And it was fun Leafs hockey to watch. And people online were like, man, that is fun. Like that Florida game I go back to where they just ran them out of the building, and Florida tried to do their Florida pushback, and they didn't even take a step back. They just throttled down even more and said, get out of here with that shit. Mm-hmm. And they just overwhelmed them. And it was game over the whole time. And not an ounce of that after that little blip. You go and you have a Mitch Marner thing and you play them in Vegas and you blow leads and you half-ass it. And there's just no like professionalism or team mentality. Like that, they don't know how to come together and like shut the door or climb out of anything. They don't have resilience. And just right back, 5-game losing streak, probably cost them their season. Okay, let's have a little reset, get everyone healthy, Olympics, come back. There's a chance here, you guys. You get a little bit hot, you could do something. Fill your pants, lose 3 in a row, 4 in a row, 5 in a row, just a laughing stock. Now it's just the biggest tank job where no one even knows what to think. They were not a team at all. They can't correct course at all. This whole season you look back at, and it's actually quite shocking how bad they could be that consistently.
Revolting. It's ugly. Our Super Chat charity partner is not. It's Sick Kids. Want to make sure that your question or comment gets on the show. Hit us up with a Super Chat. Proceeds from our Super Chat will go to Sick Kids, ranked the #1 research-intensive children's hospital in Canada and 3rd in the world. So we got Steve Simmons coming on, never short on an opinion, from the Toronto Sun in about 15. Looking forward to that interview. And nobody wants to do an autopsy in this market, but Rosie, we will today. How about that? It's too early for an autopsy, they're saying.
Oh, is that what they're saying?
Yeah.
I'll do anything. I'm down for whatever, man. These guys have left themselves open to all kinds of it. I mean, they don't have a leg to stand on as far as like, what are they going to say that's positive about this season? They should be frigging embarrassed, and they're just not. They're not. They just don't seem to be at all. Some pushback and some pissed off players and some pride. I haven't seen it yet, and that's just what's so frustrating, because people care about this thing so much, and like anyone could honestly go and defend this team if they went down swinging. and they just didn't have the talent or something like that. And everyone's dissecting, oh, Keith Pelly is the pro. Like, fuck. The guys that put the jersey on who get to play on that team in that league when things aren't going bad, like enough is enough. Throw the kitchen sink at the problem and just go down swinging if you're going to go down. They didn't even step up to the plate, man. They didn't have the balls to step up to the plate and try to correct this course. They just did the same chicken shit thing over and over again. And you look back now and you're just like, what the hell was that, you guys? And yeah, fuck. The teams that are really good at that, there's always someone standing on at the tip of the spear. And it's some like Hall of Fame captain, some player that just wears his heart on his sleeve and can lead and is the captain, the leadership group, the veteran, the guy that sets the table for everybody. And we just don't have that. I don't even keep waiting for it. I just watch and I look at Austin and I'm just like, do you ever say anything that's fucking motivating? Do you ever say anything that like enough is enough? Or are you just that quiet and do you just take your gear off and go do your thing do you ever lead the guys? Do you ever try to like, I know there was a team meeting, players only meeting, and it's just like, I just wonder, man. It's just the proof's in the pudding. These guys don't have, they're just lost. They don't have leadership. The whole season was just this fucking embarrassment of no direction at all. And I just wonder what's going to come of it. Are we going to waste another year dicking around? Do we have to tear it down to the studs? Can someone fix it? I don't know, man. And you look at Tree Living and you hear him talk, and it's like, I don't expect some magic thing. Holy, I never thought of that, Brad. Oh my goodness. Wow, that's an incredible idea. I never thought it. There's no secret thing that's going to happen. Like fucking, no wonder there's no plan. What the hell do you do with this? Like, good luck. It's going to be interesting to see him finally say like, here's what we're doing and here's how we're going to do it, because what a tall task is in front of this team.
Massive. It's huge. It's so tall. I've always maintained too, it's not that they lose, it's how they lose. And that's been a theme for the last decade as well. At the Leafs Nation 41 on YouTube, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Leafs Morning Take wherever you find your podcast. Make sure to leave us a 5-star review when you do so. And don't forget to check out theleafsnation.com. This episode is brought to you by Tim Hortons. Feel that buzz in the air. That's because roll-up season is officially back and here. You can still play on the cup while supplies last. And don't forget, you can also play on the Tim's app for even more chances to win just for doing what you already do, grabbing your Tim's. And Rosie, if there's one thing I know about you, you love your Tim's, don't you?
Yeah, I like making Tim's picks. It feels like gambling. It's better than gambling, to be honest, doing the Tim's picks. Pick your players and rack up the points. Have the person at the window think that you're going to pay for something and just give them a little wink and say, Timmy's picks, baby. There won't be any payment today. It's pretty fun. So get on board with that. I'm glad they're a sponsor, man. I kind of forgot about that. Love it.
Guy played in the show. He loves the free coffee, which is great to see. Roll-up season runs until March 22nd, so don't wait and miss your chance. For more details, visit timhortons.ca/rollup. Roll up to win. Only at Tim's, 7 straight losses, 2 regulation wins in the last 20. And I'm now a big fan of the St. Louis Blues. Why, you ask? Well, Braden Shen's no longer there, but they won last night, which means the Maple Leafs only 6 points behind the Blues, who currently are 27 of 32 in the National Hockey League, Rosie. I love that stuff.
Finally, something this group is good at, man. Losing at a tremendous pace. God. I mean, why not? At this point, let's do it. Let's lose the whole thing. I don't know. It's St. Louis is the final one, right? You got to slide back like 3. I haven't looked in a while, but
yeah.
I mean, if you want to talk about like the pace they're on, the pace that they're losing at is you can close 6 points off. Yeah, you betcha you can. Yeah. They're not even, they haven't even been in a game like, wasn't there a Philly game that they lost in a shootout maybe? And other than that, it's just doors blown off of them every night. Yep. And it's almost like, and there's no criticism after. So it's like the pressure's off because everyone who cares about this team knows that like the only thing that you could talk about that's remotely positive is if they fail enough to get that pick back from Boston. So I'm on board with it. I don't want them to win anymore. I don't want them to win a game. I don't want them to squeak one out. I don't want them to win to get into a overtime or to get a point. I don't want them to get anything. I'd like it if they had a whatever. I'd like them to lose by a little bit less of a margin, but they don't seem to. They seem to be pretty comfortable, man. Just there's no pressure, no expectations. A bunch of people around them want them to lose, and they seem to be pretty good at it right now. So hey, I'm on board with it. I don't watch too closely. I don't get excited anymore. It sucks that I don't know when the next meaningful game is going to be. I guess game number 1 in October, which is a long ways away, which sucks. But maybe they can get that pick back. So if they're going to do this, they're already embarrassed. I mean, the whole thing's just a joke this whole season. So you might as well put the cherry on top and get that pick back.
I'm not kidding. This could get ugly. They've dropped 7 in a row. You want to hear their next 5 or 6 opponents? They got Montreal on the road tomorrow. They got Anaheim in town Thursday, at Buffalo Saturday, at Minnesota Sunday, home to the Islanders, Braden Schen's New York Islanders in a week from now. Then they're home to Carolina. Like, the games do not get easy. They're playing some really good teams over the next 4 or 5 games.
They might never win again. Those are some dogs. Like even Anaheim is, I didn't expect them to be pretty solid this year. They're trying to make a push. Buffalo doing what they're doing. Montreal's their nemesis. They've been coming for a while. Mm-hmm. Minnesota, Long Island. Holy shit. I don't see a win in there. Especially when those guys are all jockeying for position and playing for, to prep for playoffs and to get a better spot and a better seed. And they all have things going for them. Like seriously, Montreal, Buffalo, Anaheim, Long Island, Minnesota. Like what I didn't know it was that rough. I only look a couple games into the future. So there's like, so then you got to start looking at who like St. Louis is playing and whatnot. Like this thing could flip in a week. You lose 3 and they win 2, and all of a sudden it's just a game apart from the standings wise. And I just don't see any reason for these guys to come together and do anything special whatsoever. I don't know if Craig, how he feels. I mean, he can't motivate these guys if he wants to at the best of times.
He's done.
He can't get anything out of them. It's a good chance he's not going to be here. So I don't know, man. They could absolutely slide down and get that. It's funny to see that schedule and kind of be happy about it. I mean, you can even, justify losing to those teams because they're hot and heavy teams. I mean, there's a bunch of dogs in that schedule. So we'll see what happens, man. It would be very interesting if you get that back because, it didn't look like it was possible. And I mean, it would be nice if Tree made that. Hey, how about you already gave up a first. And Fraser Minton, like a legit prospect who has already shown so much maturity, so much upside, looks like he's going to be a pro for sure. And a first for Carlo, who you don't even like, obviously. And you can't just be like, hey, well, let's just make it a top 10. Let's just make it a top 10 pick. Like you couldn't even sprinkle, like for everything you gave, you could. And I guess it was probably just the last thing on anyone's mind, of where to protect that first round pick as you feel like you're in a window to try and win a Stanley Cup. I get it, but Jesus, it would be nice if that was a little bit less of a challenge to slide that hard.
Yeah, I think teams are being smarter with their protection regarding draft picks. This wasn't a thing like 5 or 6 years ago, and now all over the place when deals are made, you wonder about the trade protection and all that. And it even happened, I think, in the Leafs Colorado deal for Nicolas Roy. I think it's top 10 protected next season, and we know Colorado's a juggernaut. They're not going anywhere. By the way, the Blues have won 4 in a row and 5 of the last 6. They play the Islanders this week. They're at Carolina, home to Edmonton, and they got the Jets on Sunday, so 4-game week. We'll be monitoring the St. Louis Blues this week. And even the standings, man, there is a world where the Maple Leafs could be, 26 of 32 in the NHL by the end of the week because behind them or in front of them, whichever way you look at it, they got the Kings at 64, the Preds at 64, Winnipeg's at 62, the Maple Leafs at 65, tied right now with the Florida Panthers. Like the tank's fully on, and I like this schedule. It's very favorable in terms of losing games here, Rosie.
If that's what you want to do. Those look like some teams you could do it against. The Preds, man, they've sure flown under the radar. Interesting. Yeah, there's a couple teams, man. A couple teams, but it's possible. I mean, all you got to do is exactly what you're doing right now, which is absolutely nothing. Losing at a tremendous pace, and keep it up. I don't see any reason why they would dig deep and find a bunch of wins now. They can't do that at the best of times. Berube can't motivate them. They can't get them to play the right way. Matthews is a shell of himself. Maybe the goaltenders just absolutely stand on their head and steal a couple games, but other than that, I completely expect them to keep on losing the way they have been.
Not much to be optimistic around right now. At the Leaf Station 401, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button as you bring in today's guest from the Toronto Sun. It is Steve Simmons. Steve, thank you so much for doing this. Maybe piggyback off that and just 7 straight losses for this Maple Leafs team. Do you think this is doable to get into the bottom 5 here?
It's wishable, I think, if that's such a word. You can wish that they get to that point, but I don't really think it's possible. And this is such a Leafs ending if it ends up that way, that they'll give up the 6th or 7th pick in the draft and won't have anything to show, for the deal that was made a year ago, other than Brandon Carlo, who they don't really want on their team anyhow.
It would fit the theme. Wouldn't it? Deadline came and went, Steve. What were your thoughts on what Toronto did there?
Toronto did what they had to do and means a whole lot of nothing, but they traded players that they could get some kind of value back for, and they wound up with a pile of draft picks for years down the road, and they've stocked the cupboard, so to speak, for whoever's going to be running this operation in 2028 and 2029 and all that. And so they did do that for an organization that's been trying to win every single year, and now we're looking to sort of, rejig, if you want to call it that. And so did they make great deals? No. Did they make the deals that were there? Yes. Then they had to make. And they've taken 3 players of some value off their roster for the final 20 games or so of the season. As you guys pointed out, as if they could somehow turn that into a tank while getting some of those draft picks back, then even better. Then the deadline worked out well because you removed players from your roster that were viable NHL players.
I'm always fascinated by the PR campaign. What have you made of the messaging from Tree Living after the deadline Friday, even some of the words from Craig Berube over the weekend?
Well, to be perfectly honest, I tend to tune out what's said in those circumstances because it's all prearranged. They have meetings. They sit with their PR staff. They okay, this is what we're going to say when they ask this. This is what they're going to say when they ask that. And so I pay little attention to what's publicly said and a whole lot more attention to what I find out on my own. And I knew going into the deadline that Tree Living knows what this team is. He doesn't say that very often, but he does. He knows what this team is. He knows they're not going anywhere. He knows they need to be redone. Whether he has the wherewithal to do it or whether he has the go-ahead from Keith Pelly to do it are 2 different things. But I think him more than the coach, Tree knows where this team is, and Tree knows that the roster's not good enough and and his best players haven't been good enough. There's so many factors involved, as everybody knows. But I think the difference right now, in my opinion, as to what's going on in the front office, I asked about the hiring of a president. I was told there would be no president. I asked about whether the general manager will be replaced. It doesn't sound like that's going to happen. What strikes me as odd in all of this is that the coach is very well regarded by the GM, Craig Berube, by Brad Treliving, and I don't see any way in which you can bring Craig Berube back next season. But the way it's sounding is it might be possible.
Interesting. So then, in their mind, who's to blame for this season?
I don't think you sit in, blaming is the wrong way to go about it. It's analyzing what happened, how did it happen, why did it happen? And I think you can blame. This is a multi-factored thing. Who messed up the Marner thing? Well, it was messed up when he got the no trade, and he got the no trade in the final year of his deal, which is quite unusual, by the way. That usually you get the no trade until the final year, and then not so much. Now, think about this. At last year's deadline, the Leafs had agreed to a trade to bring Mikko Rantanen to Toronto for Mitch Marner, which Mitch Marner would not agree to. So you're in a situation where look at what would have happened a year ago had Mikko Rantanen come to the Leafs. Very good playoff player, a very big playoff player, a guy you could have signed long-term and would have fit in perfectly with that Nylander, Matthews, Rantanen kind of top. When Marner says no, then you're at his, you're playing his game now. Where does he want to go? How does it work? If he leaves as a free agent, you get nothing. So you might as well try and work out some kind of sign and trade. And the best they could do in this, because he wanted to go to Vegas, was get Nick Roy out of Vegas. And Nick Roy, who played very well, by the way, for the Vegas Golden Knights when they won the Stanley Cup, and played quite well last night for the Colorado Avalanche, scoring a goal in his first game, did not do much with the Leafs. So I don't know if blame is the right word, because there's too many factors involved. Who do you blame for Chris Tanev being hurt? To me, Chris Tanev was the Leafs MVP a year ago. He changed the way this team played, and he brought a leadership that they clearly don't have right now on the ice and on the bench and maybe in the dressing room. A lot of times, and Jay will know this better than we will, a lot of times the captain isn't always the guy wearing the C in the dressing room. The leader is obvious when you're around teams very long. And so to me, it was obvious to me last year that Chris Tanev was the leader when it mattered. And he was the guy playing. The fact he hasn't played the entire season completely messed up the Leafs defense, because they had him and McCabe as a number one pairing. And when you took him away, McCabe wasn't able to hold down a number one pairing by himself, and he wasn't able to partner with anyone that could do it. So there's no number one pairing anymore. The number two pairing, which was Carlo and Riley, Carlo got hurt, and then Riley's game disintegrated. And so, things that were in play a year ago weren't so much. And I'm going to bring the goaltending thing into it as well. Who do you blame for whatever happened to Joseph Wall at the beginning of the season that had him missing, a quarter or so of the season, and then Stolarz gets hurt, and you have 40 some games or 50 games where you don't have your 1 and 2 goalie together. So goaltending has been an issue all year long, and question now is are these guys good enough to be your NHL goalies, or do you have to go and get better than them? Last year I would have said no. This year I'm thinking possibly. And so I don't know where you sit and say, who's to blame for this? Blame goes to the coach, blame goes to the players, blame goes to the general manager, blame goes to his staff, and blame goes to the ownership. I think you can look at, virtually every move. Brendan Shanahan got fired a year ago by Keith Pelly after making the playoffs 9 years in a row. You think MLSE would have liked to see the Leafs in the playoffs 10 years in a row? I think so. So they fire Shanahan. Not that I'm saying that meant anything in terms of on-ice production, but you can say what you want about how he operated and how he did his job. He was in the playoffs 9 years in a row. They're not in the playoffs this year. So, and the fact is they're not entertaining replacing him in any way in a league in which Joe Sakic is the president of the Colorado Rockies, and you can run around the league and see Cam Neely as president of the Boston Bruins, and there's very prominent team presidents. The guy in Montreal, Gorton, is the team president. The structure in many places that works is president, general manager. Leafs are one man short of that, just general manager. I'm not sure I agree with that philosophy.
For me, you presented a really unique and interesting name over the weekend in your piece, Chris Pronger. Actually, I reached out to Prongs a couple of weeks ago about the idea. It was out there, and Not that he wasn't open to it, but he pretty much said it would take a lot. But I do agree. I just think that figure has become sort of an important aspect of any successful team in this league. And not to say that Shanahan didn't do a lot of great things, but it just feels like having that buffer between Pelly and the GM is important. And I think it would be a good fit to have somebody like that. But why'd you bring up Chris Pronger's name?
I've been around the NHL over 40 years, and there's a handful of guys, be it general managers, be it coaches, be it players, whose magnitude is so important, team to team and position to position, that they stick with you. And Chris Pronger's been one of those guys for me. He brought winning to everywhere he was. He understood winning. He has that intensity about winning. And I'm not looking at this as a hockey team now. I'm looking at this as a business. And you think, your CEO of your business sets the agenda for your business. And in this case, the head of the hockey operation sets the agenda for the hockey operation. And I want a guy who would do anything to win, who would go through anyone to win, and I think he has that with intelligence, with hockey knowledge. And that's why I threw the name out, because, I always thought that if you put him in the right position, and the thing about Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment is when they wanted Brian Burke, they just went out and said, we want Brian Burke. We're going to pay him whatever, we need to get him. That's the way they did it. When they want Shanahan, they paid him what it took to get him out of New York. They did that. It's something you have to pay money for. You have to pay money to bring that guy in. But will that guy put a stamp on your organization so that you do? I'll use Boston maybe as the best example. Boston a year ago looked like they were dead. They looked like they're going into a 5-year, never see them again kind of dungeon, which is not what the Boston Bruins do. Every time they sort of drop out, they come back. And what happened this year with a roster that, we can question all we want, they've come back pretty much. I mean, they're fighting for that last playoff spot, but they've had a really good season so far. And I think when you have a Cam Neely at the top, with a quality general manager in Sweeney, you have that, I'm trying to think of the word. You have that stamp of this is what it means to be a Boston Bruin. This is what it means to be a Colorado Avalanche player. What does it mean to be a Toronto Maple Leaf? Do they get the great leadership from their captain, Austin Matthews? I don't think so. Do they get the great leadership from their best players like William Nylander? I don't think so. So where is that coming from? Sometimes it comes from the coach when you have, like Pat Burns did in Toronto at one time, or Pat Quinn did in Toronto. But a lot of times you have to search for that guy. And sometimes it comes from the guy at the top who says, this is how we're going to do stuff. Pat Gillick and Paul Beeston in Toronto ran the best, major league operation of any sport that I've seen in my career. And how did it work? One guy handled, the money and the thing. The other guy handled all the baseball. And every once in a while they flipped. One guy did the other guy's job a little bit. And they did a superb job of, I think it was 11 or 10 years in a row of great records. That doesn't come accidentally. It's a lot of work goes into that. And I think you need that kind of guy. If you don't have one, and let's be honest, if you don't like Brad Treliving as a person, then take a look in the mirror. He's just a wonderful man. But he managed the Leafs so far. He managed the Calgary Flames, and they got worse. And he was in Arizona when Arizona was a disaster of sorts, which Arizona always was. So in fairness, I'm not sure you can hold that against him. But the Calgary, there's a resume there. And so there's nobody saying that Sam Pollock is now the general manager of the Leafs. And I think Brad could be fine in that job with a guy like Pronger, with a guy like Shanahan, with a guy who can be the guy beside him who says, we really need this, and who can be hard-edged when he needs to be hard-edged. And I don't see who that is right now at the Leafs.
Now, Brad went on the tour, did a few shows, and, certainly took a lot of accountability, which I think you could admire in this market. Talked about needing to get a plan. There was no plan right now, but that's the plan, is to get a plan. As far as the roster construction is concerned, how do you think they go about business here? What do you think the plan will become?
Well, I think first of all, you have to rid yourself of as many poor contracts as you have, and open up. And while at the time when the salary cap is really jumping, you have to make more room for spending than ever before, because you have what, 4 forwards you can count on, and if you include John Tavares at age 36 next season, that's 4 forwards you can count on. You need 12, and you need 6 to play at the top and 6 to play at the bottom, and they just traded 3 of their bottom 6 guys, 2 of whom are free agents. So if you can sign back if you want to. But the plan has to be, how do you make this team better first? And you have to start on defense. In the NHL today, and maybe the NHL always, but more so today, you need puck moving defensemen, and you need guys who can make that first pass out of their zone to someone moving. If it becomes a guy standing still, moving the puck to a guy standing still, that defeats the purpose. And so they right now have a very, very thin back end. You can put Jake McCabe in your top 6. Maybe you can find a place for Morgan Riley if he agrees to a trade, and maybe someone has interest in him. I don't know who would, but somebody might. GMs out there have a way of looking at someone else's talent and thinking, if I got that guy on my team, I can fix him. And that's what happens. But you need to rebuild the entire defense. You may not have to rebuild goaltending if you believe in those 2 guys, and you believe if they stay healthy, keyword being if, that you can play with them. But right now you need to rebuild your defense. You need to rebuild your forwards in terms of depth and strength. And if you don't, if you're not able to do that, you're going to have a very thin lineup. And you're going to have a very thin lineup, based on a few very good forwards. And, sometimes a team can get by with 1 line, 1.5 lines. And the Leafs should be able to do that part of it. It's now the rest. Can you play this way? Can you be better defensively? Can you go, what are they now? They're near the bottom of the league in goals against, if not at the bottom. They're near the bottom of the league in home wins and road wins. To me, almost every category you look at, they're in a place you don't want to be. So you have to completely rebuild the roster. And the best way to do that is to get rid of as many guys as possible, so that you can open up cap space, which is more valuable in some cases than players.
And the elephant in the room, of course, is that after this season, Austin Matthews will have 2 years remaining on his contract. He's in a massive slump, by the way, that nobody's talking about. Again, 11-game goal shot. He's got 1 in the last 15 now. Hasn't scored since January 27th against Buffalo. It's been that long for, we thought a couple years ago, the best goal scorer on the planet. Just hasn't been that consistency. I'd love to ask you about Matthews and just like where he fits. Do you think it's a Berube problem? Do you think it's a Matthews issue, personnel around him? And what's your sense on the future of Austin Matthews in Toronto as well?
Well, I think one thing we can say for Austin Matthews, he's become a better full ice hockey player, 200-foot. He's an exceptional defensive player, and people don't often give him credit for that. And you can always see that when you look at his stats, his other stats, that about what happens when he's on the ice. The Leafs don't tend to get scored on very often, and if they do, it's usually not his fault or his doing. The scoring thing is interesting, because I watched him really closely at the Olympics, and playing with a really good set of wingers. And he had all kinds of chances to score, and often he was not shooting. And I don't know if that's because his confidence isn't what it used to be, or how you look at it, but he had opportunities in the gold medal game to score and didn't shoot. And it was the same in the game against Sweden for the U.S. And so he's not shooting from places on the ice as a Leaf or during the Olympics, when he's in that opportunity. So whether that's a confidence thing, or whether that's a physical thing, or whether his shot has lost something to the injuries that he's had, that I don't know. But I do know this. With Craig Berube as coach, his scoring stats are down like 37%. Now, sometimes how a coach uses you and what a coach asks you to do play into the fact of how many goals you score and how many opportunities you get. Like, I'll use this as an example. Early in the season, when the power play was really going badly for the Leafs, they did not have Matthews in what I would call a shooting or scoring position. Often they had him at the top of the umbrella, which is fabulous for a defenseman like Radish in Tampa, who can really fire the puck, but not so fabulous for a $12 million guy you're paying to score goals. And so here's the thing: you've got that guy. Now, what is, you got to ask yourself, he's not a 60 goal scorer anymore. He's not scoring at 40 goal pace right now. I think he's 24th in the NHL in goals scoring right this season. Think about this. He was first from the day he entered the league to the day this season began. He scored the most even strength goals in the NHL in his career. So he's the number one goal scorer in his era. And he doesn't look like it now. And you have to figure out, is there something wrong with him? Is there something wrong with how you're using him? Is there something wrong with the people he plays with? There's many questions to answer here, and he's got to answer some of them himself. But like, we've seen coaches who can you move your player into a position, and then suddenly he's in a position where he can succeed. And that's what a coach has to do. A coach has to, with each player. I don't know if I've ever seen many better than Pat Burns at this. He would determine what each of the 12 forwards, what their job was. And he would express it to them very clearly what their job was. And therefore, and that's when Doug Gilmour had his best seasons, and Dave Andreychuk had his best seasons, and many others as well. But those two top end guys had numbers playing for Pat Burns that they never had playing for anyone else. Just incredible numbers. And I think that's what coaches can do. Where do you put him on the power play? How do you situate him? Look at Alex Ovechkin. He's been scoring power play goals from the same place for 20 years. Everybody in the league knows where he's going to be. Everybody in the league knows how he shoots it. He still scores. Why, if Alex Ovechkin can do that, then Washington Capitals can do that with him, why haven't the Leafs been able to do that with Austin Matthews? That I've asked that of Sheldon Keefe, and I've asked that of Craig Berube, and they kind of look at me and don't answer very clearly. And so to me, this whole roster needs to be reconstructed, and that gives the GM flexibility in terms of reconstructing the roster. And sometimes when you have players just ready to play, like prospects or draft picks, this is a good time because you can start to slide some of those guys in, maybe Ben Danford in a year or two. But they don't have, what do they have? How many A prospects do they have? I say zero. And one defenseman who might be a 3-4 one day.
A lot of questions, minimal answers. Steve, can't thank you enough for your time. We'll talk soon, okay?
All right, guys. There's lots to talk about. I'm sure you guys do it all the time, and bless you for doing it. They give you no shortage of material.
Good point.
Never a dull moment.
Take care. See you,
bud. You well.
You too. That is Steve Simmons of the Toronto Sun. And yeah, it's makes a good point. I know it's not stuff we typically talk about, but there's a lot of meat on this bone from the Maple Leafs perspective. Like, even, Steve put out a column over the weekend about Matthews and his dip in production. He just talked about 37%. Like, is it a Berube thing? Because if you recall, a couple years back, 69 goals, although he's a better all-around player. But the thing that I really took from that is that, Steve's well-connected. He's been around for a long time. This idea that we get both these guys back. Like, for me, my only pushback on that, there has to be a scapegoat. Like, when there's expectation, if you recall going into this season, Rosie, it was cup or bust. It had to be that way. Hey, Marner's no longer here, but we've reformatted the roster. reconfigured it, brought in some new different guys. We think we're capable of winning a Stanley Cup. You don't even get to the playoffs. Somebody has to take the fall. And it sounds more and more by the day. And I was under the opinion that if Brad Treliving's running the deadline, I don't know how you're getting rid of this guy in a couple months. So I think Treliving's staying. That's just my opinion. I think ultimately it's Craig Berube who's going to lose his job. But to hear that, it's pretty stunning that there's a shot of both these guys coming back. How stunned were you at hearing that?
Yeah, it's interesting. I just don't believe that, taking, for example, Austin Matthews, his drop off has anything to do with Craig Berube. His system doesn't, he can do whatever the hell he wants out there. He can play however he wants out there. It's not like he's getting the red line and flipping it in every single time. Like, let's get serious. The guy's shot is not the same. He doesn't have the same poise. He doesn't have the power and the pop. He doesn't have the same confidence. It's not Craig Berube. Imagine you could just take away this guy's superpowers by coaching. Like, no, something else is there. I don't believe that Craig Berube is to blame for this season, but I have always thought it, like you say, someone has to take the fall. These guys won't play for him the way that they need to. So it pisses me off, but I do in the back of my mind think that he will no longer be part of it. And to hear that, it's interesting, man. It's to have that season and have the balls to say, yeah, we're not changing anything is very interesting. Cool. And I'm wondering if the longer that we go towards, the summertime or July 1 or the draft, or take your pick on the calendar, if nothing changes, the more that will start to become a possibility. But like you say, that guy's connected and talks to a lot of people and seems to think that's a very real possibility. I think that'll raise a lot of eyebrows, no doubt.
Yeah, that goes without saying. At the Leafs Nation 401, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. We got a flurry of super chats and support of sick hits to get to. We'll start with Shane Brom, who writes in, what are the chances of the Leafs overpaying for a top 6 UFA forward this offseason? Do you think getting one would make them a playoff team next season? It's hard to say. I think they're going to be obviously connected to the Alex Tucks of the world if they get there. It sounds like Nick Schmaltz is gaining ground and steam, potentially re-signing here with Utah. At least that's the wording coming from Elliot Friedman over the weekend in his sort of deadline recap podcast. But I think the problem is going to be that we haven't seen, Rosie, is that there's so many teams now with cap space because the cap has been jumping, where it's like you have to make the ultimate decision. If you're a UFA, you can get your money from your team. It comes down to, I want to be here. Same for Alex Tuck. I think when you look at the UFA crop, it's nothing like mind-changing or shattering in terms of like the potential of these players. But I think that's the last thing you want from the Maple Leafs perspective, is to get involved in these scenarios and you're in a bidding war with some of these guys.
Yeah, like if you're going to get a difference maker, you're going to have to pay for them. And, some years are different than others, and typical. There's going to be other guys, other teams in the fray. And if you want to get it over the finish line, you'll have to pay. And the number will probably look pretty high. And, with the cap situation and the way the league's going, maybe it won't stay high. Maybe it won't look high for long. You're going to start seeing guys in this league at some point in time making $20 million a year. And, it wasn't very long ago that $6 million a year was, a top dog. It's good for the league. It's, everything costs more, inflation, whatever you want to say. But in order to make the playoffs next year, you're going to have to sign free agents. You're not going to make all these trades. Brad isn't even, is Brad able to make trades that drastic? No, you got to get Morgan Riley off the payroll, and you got to go out there and sign a couple guys that are going to have the right mentality to play in this market and to play the right way and to change what this season was. Will it overpay or not? I mean, it'll depend on what the guy comes in and does. I mean, the number is going to look high to get any kind of a difference maker. The guys you just mentioned, you're going to have to outbid everyone else that wants the player as well. So the number is going to be high, yeah. But they do have cap space. If they can get away from the Morgan Riley contract, they need players on this team. They need change. They need some dogs. And whether it's an overpay or not will depend on how that player does when he gets here.
More super chats. WM98 writes in, if the Leafs worked half as hard as Zach Phillips, they'd be top 3 in the Atlantic. Cheers to that. TVD59 writes in, can we finally abandon being the NHL version of the United Nations? For fuck's sake, load up and build a team of mostly Canadians. Let pride be our X factor when we hit the seasonal slumps. All right, on that front, Michael writes in, Hope Matthews being the captain, do know best for the team is a full rebuild, and he should go to management to trade him. Will be best for everyone. That to me is a polarizing convo. As Patrick G. Mafia writes in, are you willing to give Matthews a raise 15 times 8? I mean, that's going to be a big topic of convo, but I'm really curious to know and see how that conversation goes, whether it's first thing in the offseason or prior to the, end of the regular season. The direction of Austin Matthews and also what he's thinking. Does he want to stick around for whatever this is going to be over the next couple of years?
Yeah, I mean, that's a big part of it that sometimes people don't think about. What do we do with him? Well, he may have a say in that. He may be tired of it. I think, by all accounts, I think he likes Toronto. Yep. I just wonder if I don't tend to know the guy. I don't tend to know what he values and what are his priorities. But a big part of this, with what to do with Austin Matthews might be taken care of by him. Hey guys, I'm not going to re-sign a big ticket here. I want to change the scenery. I want to see something different. I want something new and something fresh. So that's known now. Do what you will. I think that could easily happen. Maybe it'll be mutual, but time's going to tell, man. I don't know what the guy's going to say, but he's going to have a say in it for sure. I don't love the idea of signing him for X amount more years based on what we've seen, especially recently. Even at his best, he can't get the team over a hump or, use his character to drive the team to the promised land. They drop important games. They blow series. They can't win They can't win a clinching game. I'm not really interested in that, but I wonder where he's at. Maybe he'll make it easy and just say, I'd like out too, and it'll be mutual, and they'll make a deal that makes sense for both parties, and away they go. But we're not there right now. I do believe they're going to try to rebuild this team around him and see if they can salvage what's left of this core and get towards better. But you're going to need a lot more dogs and a lot more heart than what this team has shown for the past 60 or so games.
Again, there's still a lot of shell shock for me, just considering what we've been through even the last 3.5 years doing this podcast, the last decade in general with this franchise. It's just a weird position, a weird feel, the doom and gloom, the darkness of this franchise right now, and not knowing what's ahead, this perception, this ideology that, they're going to come back next season and we're all going to forget about this year and it was an anomaly and nothing to see here. Or on the flip side, maybe this is just the precursor to everything. If you recall, man, not to compare the two, the Vancouver Canucks were a team that many going into last season were picking to go far because of what they did the year prior. And now look at what they're doing, right? I think what you can learn from that is so vital and so important how quickly things can tumble in this league. And I think from the Leafs perspective, all I want is a plan. It's a strategy to get ahead of this. Like if you got to put everybody together and figure out what are we truly, not what you think, in your gut or your mind you think you are. What are you? And what's the direction of this franchise? Because this could just be the beginning, if you believe it, this 7 straight losses, this losing and disappointment and tanking. Maybe this has just opened up a reality that cup window is closed and it's going to take a couple more years to get back into that conversation again.
Yeah, it sure will. I mean, that's just the nature of it. And when the margins are thin in the NHL, and if you take 2 steps back at any point in time, you fall far and you are looking up a long ways. And that's where the Leafs are right now. It's hard to quantify, the problem and what this season was. I'm not saying it was a one-off, but I know that the team can be better. You could come back with the exact same team, exactly the same, everybody the same, and do that season over again. I just don't see how you could possibly be that bad again. You're going to make change, whatever that is. I do think there is a sliver of hope that was an anomaly. And I just worry that in my mind, I feel like I see that the problem is the heart and the give a shit meter that doesn't exist an astronomically shocking amount of times throughout this season, where it could have been rectified by just strapping on your fucking balls and saying enough is enough and coming together and doing things the right way. But they kind of glide around out there and then they lose and no one seems to be mad. Oh, yeah. Good game. The stupid shit they say after a game is shocking half the time. I mean, if they want to come together, I think that if they get the chemistry or you're going to need some leadership. You're going to need some guys that show you this is how we're fucking doing this. This is how we get out of this problem. This is not acceptable. Here's what we're doing for the rest of time. And there's no exceptions. You could have a good team next year. You could have a much better team next year. How good, I don't know. But it's just who's going to be that guy and who's going to take the room. Steve mentioned Chris Tanev has a lot to do with that. If he wants to come in there and be more of a voice and be more of a leader and kind of show how it's done and change the mentality in that room, you could get back on track. But based on what I've seen here, I have my reservations. I believe that where they fell short in the past, where it wasn't good enough, is they didn't have enough of that dog mentality, and they didn't have that playoff style of players and of attitude and of identity. So you bring in Craig Berube and you mix and match a little bit to try to have a team that's more that way, and they go the complete opposite direction and completely fall off the face of the earth. That's scary to me. That says something. And I don't love it, because what you're going to need to do to get back into it is a whole lot more of what this team apparently is not willing to do. That's scary. And to me, that leans me to believe that a total teardown rebuild and go through the pain of that is probably the way out of this thing. But by all accounts, they're not there yet, and they want to try to retool this. And again, there's a sliver of hope if they want to pull their heads out of their asses that this team could be a lot better than they are right now. Whether they're willing to do it or not is still up for debate, and who's going to be on the roster is still a question mark, and they got lots of time to figure that out, unfortunately.
Yes, sir. They got new lines. We'll talk about those tomorrow. I don't got anything else to add today. It's time now for the last call, brought to you by Bet365. Whatever your bet is, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Download the app and get it in the game. Use code NATION. That's NATION, NATION. Must be 19 or older. Ontario only. Please play responsibly. If you're someone you know has a gambling problem, visit ConnexOntario.ca. I'm going to go with the Ottawa Senators in regulation tonight, visiting the Vancouver Canucks. That's my play for this evening. In the NHL.
I was also going to that game. Oh, in regulation. Oh, Lord. Yeah. Lord. I would smash that. I'll also take the Sens minus 1.5.
Yeah.
And I'll take the over in that game. So interesting stuff. Yeah, I don't. That's minus 1.5 is plus 110. So I dig that, man. I think the Vancouver Canucks are so gutless, and that Pettersson kid needs to go away in such a hurry. My God, that kid, seems to be just this sniveling wimp to me, and it's like you're trying to win in the National League with this guy. I think they sent the wrong one packing, but not a lot of faith in Vancouver, unfortunately.
I mean, JT Miller's not any better, okay? Let's not act like this guy is the best captain in the world either. But they got some issues out in Vancouver. Again, I just thought it was important to stress and bring them up earlier on, because just shows you, even I know some folks in the chat that we were discussing earlier on, like, is there a team that's fallen out of grace quicker than Toronto? And people brought up Winnipeg, but they, like the Maple Leafs, believe they can bounce back next season. But what gives me hope from their perspective, Connor Hellebuyck. When you have the best goaltender on the planet, it certainly helps, and it fixes a lot of issues. And that's why I look at Winnipeg, and I wonder if they're able truly to turn it back next season and come right back and be a juggernaut, because they went from President's Trophy winner to a team that potentially could be selecting top 5 in the draft. They're right there with the Maple Leafs. I think they're 3 points behind the Leafs in the standings. But Rosie, we'll leave it at that. Coming up tomorrow, we're usually excited for a battle against Montreal. This time around, I think they're actually just going to mop the Leafs up on home ice at the Bell Center tomorrow. It's could get ugly in that one.
Oh, it very well could be. And I mean, our rivals, a team that you hate to lose to. It might be an ugly one. There'll be some texts flying back and forth, probably more from the Montreal side of things to the Toronto things. And Twitter will be a buzz. And I don't see the Leafs or the Leafs fans having a leg to stand on. But nonetheless, my evenings have opened up drastically, so I will be watching it and see what they provide. Still going to tune in and maybe throw out some tweets and see what mood I'm in, but hasn't been a very lot of positivity on the old Leafers side of things these days. So I'm going to tune in, see what they show, but not a lot of expectations. Again, I am on board with hoping that they continue to lose. I hope it's in a less embarrassing way that it has been, but they could fall. I don't know. Steve Simmons doesn't think they can fall far enough. I've been watching, and I absolutely think that they can.
Oh, yeah. Oh, they're very capable of that. At the Leafs Nation 4-1, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button on the way out. Leafs Morning Take, wherever you find your podcast. Make sure to leave us a 5-star review, and don't forget to visit theleafsnation.com. Thank you once again, as Rosie just brought up, to Steve Simmons of the Toronto Sun for dropping by. Thank you to producer Vic. For Jay Rosehill, I'm Nick Alberga. We'll talk tomorrow. Take care, everybody. Make sure to check out more of our content right here on the Leafs Nation YouTube page. We got long-form interviews, we got clips, we got epic rants by Jay Rosehill. We simply have it all. And don't forget, you can find out much more at theleafsnation.com. Thanks so much for watching.